All right, so welcome on holding by Pirke Avos, back with Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, as it's known. Again, want to welcome everyone holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers. As it is known, we are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. That's part, I think, 46, 47. Forget exactly what number. So the end of the Mishnah, which we didn't quite finish up. I mean, more or less finished it up, but still a few things I think to speak about. And the Mishnah said, Rabbi Lezer would say, the honor of your fellow should be as precious to you as your own. Do not be easy to anger. Repent one day before your death. Warm yourself by the fire of the sages. That's what we've been speaking about. But beware, lest you be burnt by its embers, the bite of a fox, sting of a scorpion, hiss of a serpent. All their words are like fiery coals. I spoke a few weeks back about this last aspect. Their words are like fiery coals. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean when they speak, they're speaking, absolute fire. I don't mean literally fire, obviously. I mean, whatever, speaking strong, whatever the topic is, whatever the topic may be. Right? Whatever the topic may be, right? Doesn't matter. We're not talking about giving strong musser, so to speak, strong ethics, making people feel like a piece of dirt, scaring them, telling them what level of hell they're going to be in, they'll never get out, and whatever. No, not talking about that. Right? That we're not talking about. Right? Their words in general are power. Yeah. Some would have more power, some less power, depending, obviously how holy the person is. Right? Because of the power of their voice, of what they do, their spirituality, right? Their level of where they're holding. And some people holding different places. Right? Some people holding different places. So someone's holding at a higher level, their words have more power. Again, we're not talking about them cursing anyone, but their words and where they're holding. Now, again, we mentioned many times also, it doesn't mean people are perfect. Doesn't mean they don't make mistakes. Right? So it doesn't mean that. But again, person should respect their knowledge. The more the knowledge of the person, that's how we measure. That's how we judge a person here. That's how we judge their level. Right? By their level of knowledge. And where they're holding. Someone has a master's, let's say. It's not the same as someone has a PhD. Even though I would say a PhD is pilot higher and deeper, or Papa has known. Yeah, it's knowing one aspect of 1% of one subject, which a lot of people give, I think, too much respect for. But people have a lot of respect. People have a PhD. So that knowledge is worth something. The knowledge is worth something. Right? In the eyes of the world. So no one's going to say, come on, look at all the effort they put in. Look at what they've done. Look at their actions. Look at what they know. Right? You see what they know? People have a lot of respect for it. Again, they put in the hours, they put in the time. Well, think about it. It's maybe 10% of the total subject itself. But nobody in their right minds, and they got to be a little bit cuckoo to do this, is going to argue with them on their thesis and on what they know. Someone who dabbles a little bit here and there, they tinker with their car. Does that make them a car mechanic? Doesn't make them a car mechanic. Further read a few articles on different things in medicine that make them a doctor. No. Are they ever going to answer back a doctor? Some might. Some might. They might say, but I read this article, whatever. Okay, so, they're allowed to ask questions. Keep the doctor on their toes, so to speak. Okay. Doctors don't necessarily like that. And they spend years and years learning. So they have knowledge. They have absolute knowledge in their fields. Most people would not argue as experts in their field. Someone read an article in Wikipedia on physics, going to knock out Stephen Hawking, right? One of the great physicists of our day. Can knock out anyone who's an expert in their field? Now again, does being an expert in the field make them God? No. Could it mean they make mistakes? They could. Nobody's perfect. Right? Nobody's perfect. Now, when it comes to Torah, there's a huge amount to learn. Humongous amount to learn. Yeah, got early commentators, later commentators, got Chumash. We just started, the book of Genesis. You can spend your whole life reading the first chapter of Genesis. And exactly what it means. I mean, you need a lot of Kabbalah to understand what's going on, right, at the very beginning. But, okay. Other things, the basis for life. The world was created. So there are people that have that knowledge. That have Kabbalistic knowledge. Some have more Kabbalistic knowledge. Okay. See, in the Orthodox world, or the ultra-Orthodox world, let's say better, how do we judge a person? You guys say, hey, we're not allowed to judge someone. Okay. How do you judge a person? Normally, by what they know. Certainly by math. Person's learning full-time should have more knowledge than someone who works. Now, it depends. That person who works could take, 3-4 hours a day, learn very strong, could also have a lot of knowledge. Okay. But, in general, see, this whole thing shouldn't even have to speak about. Because everybody's a Monday morning quarterback. Everyone thinks they know. Or they think they know. Now, it could be sometimes. Person will ask, good question. Yeah, people ask good questions. Complex questions. Mentioned someone the other day, a question I got, a while ago. So I was like, wow, it's a good question. You're right. It's a good question. Right? And most people don't necessarily think about. A lot of questions some people don't think about. Okay. Some people have a broad-based knowledge. Some people have very specific knowledge. Right? One of my personal pet peeves, there are people out there focus on one thing. Maybe they focus on, there's 70 faces of Torah. Some people more focused, let's say, on Jewish law. Some people more focused on Medrash. Some people more focused, Muslim, right? Ethics. Some people more focused, in any number of things. Right? Could be any number of things. Okay. Now, with all that, right? Even with all that, even if they're super focused, what about other things? Are there other aspects of Torah also? Not just what they're super focused in. It's very rare, I would say, it's very rare that you find someone with encyclopedic knowledge about a lot of things. So you need people that are going to be focused in Jewish law. Good. You need people who are going to be able to answer questions, whether it's on kashrus, whether it's on family purity laws, whether it's a blessing, Shabbos, other things. You need experts in these fields, okay? But when you have an expert in a certain field, that doesn't necessarily mean they're an expert in other things. They may be, but there are people that have their niche. Right? People say, come on, your niche is working with converts. Okay, true. Or no, non-Jews don't want to convert. Okay. Also true. For the last 30 years, I had the opportunity to go through a lot of material. Tremendous amount of material. Kashrus, blessings, Shabbos. Again, would I consider myself a world-class expert in all of them? Certainly not. Different levels of knowledge. But it's very rare, and this is the point, it's very rare to see somebody's got knowledge in a lot of different things. I mean, real knowledge. One of the reasons I left the modern Orthodox community, because I felt I would never, even if I got rabbinic ordination, I studied hard for the exams, so let's say I passed the exams, very good, right? What's the issue? What was my issue? Main issue? My main issue was they go through it's, they go through a little bit, of Talmud here and Talmud there, right? A few places there, a few places there. Doesn't mean they went through a whole tractate. Doesn't mean that, right? But they knew enough to pass the exam, let's say. Okay. So it's also worth something. I'm not going to say it's not worth anything. Worth something. But it's very rare, and again, this is the point. It's very rare to see a person that's got knowledge in a lot of different things. I don't just mean a little bit of knowledge. You know what they say? If you know a little bit about a lot of things, it makes you an expert in nothing. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about legitimate knowledge. So again, the way we look at it would be the more knowledge that the person has, i.e. in Torah, the greater the person. Right? The greater their knowledge. And that knowledge should be respected. As the Gemara says, these stupid Babylonians, just paraphrasing, all right, but what they say, these stupid Babylonians stand up for Sefer Torah. They stand up for a Torah scroll, but a rabbinic scholar walks in the room, they wouldn't stand up. But the rabbinic scholar exemplifies what the Torah says, has vast knowledge in the Torah, so why wouldn't they stand up for him? So the Gemara derides them. The Gemara says they're fools. A Torah scroll written by a person, has a lot of holiness. Unbelievable amount of holiness. They got a Torah scroll out of the ark, everyone stands, shows respect. That we understand. That we understand. But someone who has that knowledge of what the Torah says, they wouldn't stand up for such a person. So let's say, look, you got a brown nose. You got to show this person respect. They have knowledge. Some have more knowledge, less knowledge. What's the point? They're the first people to be made fun of. We mentioned this before. Higley or Mach Shemoy V'Zichroi. May his name be blotted out, may he rot wherever he is. Who do you go after first? The rabbis. Killed 1.5 million children also. Right? He killed on both ends. Wasn't an idiot. Knew exactly what he was doing. If you kill so many children, you have no next generation. If you kill rabbinic scholars, You don't have anyone to teach. Right? You don't have that knowledge given over to them, or they give over to others. Right? But just to show their knowledge, to impart it in the next generation. That's the whole point. Is you want to make scholars for the next generation. The only way to do it is teach them.
No, he doesn't.
You have to teach them. It's the way it works. It's a grind. For many people say, come on. You know, all you do is sit and learn all day. Yeah, try it. Not so easy. Taxing on the brain. But they'll take the first crack at something they don't know anything about. I see this all the time. People think they have knowledge, and their knowledge is valid. But nobody, again, nobody in their right minds, right? Nobody in their right minds would argue, you know, they wouldn't argue with somebody with that type of knowledge. Someone who's an expert. So Torah is very vast. Torah, King David says, wide as the ocean and as high as the mountains. So you say, how can a person gather all that knowledge? Good. There's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of knowledge out there. Again, you look at the first chapter of Genesis. It's very hard to go through. It's very hard to understand. Right? God said, let there be light. There was light. Very good. What was light created? Fourth day. Where was the light source? Good question. So it's a spiritual light, Rashi says. Put away for the righteous in the world to come. Could have been real light. Why? Because again, they have to see what was going on. Right? So what was that light source before the sun? Good question. And how did he create something out of nothing? Right? The word vayehi, and it will be. Right? That's how we translate it. It will be lights. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of deep here. Right? Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Bereshit bara Elokim mesa shamayim ve'etz haaretz. God created the heaven and the earth. Very good. And before that, there was God. You go through Pirke Avos through his heart, very beginning. Because the whole thing, why is only believe in one God? Knocks out any other so-called religion. A lot of people don't learn it. It's very hard to go through. Very good. Complex. Create the heaven and the earth. What does that mean? Created all the things ready to put there. Then he put them there. Then he put them there. But then it says he created fourth day, third day, whatever. Create the luminaries. Put them there. How did he put them there? Where did it come from? How does it work? What was before God? What does it mean that since man ate from the tree of knowledge, it's going to be like God himself? Creating, destroying worlds. This is complex. A lot of complexity here. Spend your whole life just learning this. Difference of opinion among the commentaries. Very good. Chumash needs to be learned. Needs to be learned properly. These stories are not just stories. Ma'aseh Avos Siman Labanim. The actions of our forefathers, repercussions for us, it's a sign to the children. Give one example. Where did Avram come from Ur Kasdim? That was the first test. What was the first test? He got thrown into a fiery furnace. He came out unscathed. Very good. Very good. So any test we go through, Abraham himself gave us the ability to go through it, even if we think it's hard, even if we think it's impossible. He put it into motion. The Torah never minces any words. You see, there's a lot of genealogy, thousands of years gone by. This one had this kid, and that one had that kid. He was so old, and then he had sons and daughters and whatever. Why does it mention who they were? Why does the Torah not mention who they were? Because they're insignificant. The Torah doesn't mention anyone's insignificant. The Torah mentions Lamech. The Torah mentions Methuselah. The Torah mentions Noah. Yeah. The Torah mentions Cain and Eva, right? Cain and Abel. But then it goes through whole genealogy till it gets to Noah. Right? Then you're going to go through a whole thing with the flood. You're going to go through the whole genealogy at the end to get to Abraham. So what happened in between? What happened to all those generations in between? Insignificant. Anyone came on the scene. They didn't do very much. They're not mentioned in the Torah. But the Torah's not a storybook, as the commentaries tell us. We learn from the actions of our forefathers. We learn most of what they've done, or what they could have done, or whatever. Right? Doesn't mean everybody's perfect. Right? There are flaws even by the Avos. Right? Even by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Certain things. We don't, Judaism is not about we are perfect. That's not what Judaism says. When we read the Haggadah on Passover, what do we say? We started out of the Avodah Zarah. We started out as idolaters. I don't think too much worse than that. You start out with the worst and you get to the best as they eventually came out. Yeah. Would any other so-called religion say, remind us of our past, of our negative past, negative actions? The whole story, book of Exodus, speaks about the Chet HaEgel, sin of the golden calf, changed history. We pay for the sins of that generation, every generation. You're going to say, I wasn't there. Why is there collective punishment? Because there is. Because the Gemara says, all Jews are intertwined. So if a Jew in the middle of Timbuktu does something wrong, the rest of the Jewish people suffer. Doesn't matter, he might have grown up as a potato farmer in Idaho or Timbuktu, no offense. Anyone's a potato farmer grew up in Timbuktu or Idaho. Means grew up not knowing anything about Judaism, okay. But see, all Jews look bad when someone does something wrong. They all look bad. No one ever said, an Italian does something wrong, in Brooklyn. They say, okay, burn down Italy, no more cannolis. Never hear such a thing. A Jew does something wrong, you all get blamed. Israel does something wrong, sure. You see, anti-Zionism, someone with anti-Zionism, they're anti-Semitic, it's clear. Still saying the same lies, 40,000 women and children and innocent people killed in Gaza. Lie. It's total lie. But lies sell, we're not getting into politics. But you see beyond the shadow of a doubt, it's a lot more complex. A lot of questions we can ask. If the Jews, if, let's say, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were considered Jewish before the Torah was given, whatever that means, how does Jacob marry two sisters? Forbidden. How can he keep the whole Torah? How can it say he kept the whole Torah before it was given? Married two sisters. And you see, when Rachel came in the land of Israel, she died. Outside the land might have been one thing. Inside the land, different issue. Or the whole story of Yehuda and Tamar. Kingship never leaves the tribe of Yehuda. Who comes from the tribe of Yehuda? King David. Very strange relationship he has with his daughter-in-law. Some say they stayed together afterwards. Some say they didn't. Okay, whatever it was. That's where kingship comes from that union. Not to mention Lot and his daughters. Who comes out of Lot and his daughters? Ruth. Yeah, because one of the daughters had a son named Moab. Right? It wasn't so modest. Moab means Me'av, from my father. Right? From my father doesn't sound so good. But who came out of Moab? Direct descendant, Ruth. Who comes out of Ruth generations later? 3 generations later is King David. Yeah. A lot of mystery over here. They had somebody, said, oh, you get this class, on the, Genesis, whatever, working your way through the Torah. I know the Torah backwards and forwards. So I use these 2 examples. These 2 examples. Right? The example of Lot and his daughters. And that's where the Messiah comes from. And the story of Yehuda and Tamar. So the person came back to me and said, oh, what are you trying to say, Rabbi? I said, I don't think you know the Torah the way you think you do. I don't think you may know, the quote unquote Old Testament verbatim, and you can spin it backwards and forwards. Very good. A monkey can also do that. Parrot can also do that. Doesn't mean you know anything about it. It just means you can say what the verses say. Okay. But if you're missing a lot of gaps in between, you don't know what they mean. Right? And that's a whole other thing. But the point is, there's knowledge. You got rabbis and they need, their own people to ask questions, their own rabbis to ask questions. So, sometimes you go to the top of the list. I got to see my Rebbe last week. Made a simple space shave in whatever, basically in his parking lot. Wasn't in the sukkah. His sukkah was much smaller, so they made a big sukkah, took out most of his parking lot, or part of the parking lot there. Okay, so he's the top of the list. That I married to for many years. Many, many years. Very funny. Just tell a quick story. I took my youngest son there, and anyway, who are the people in charge there? Who gets to speak to him, who doesn't, this, that. His grandkids. His grandkids I know, like, before they were born. So one of his grandkids, they had whatever, they're playing music there. Anyway, singing, whatever. So I said, come on, 30 years ago, this is nothing. I used to sit in the sukkah a couple times a week, say a couple, a few psalms. They might give over to Dvar Torah. That was it. Maybe a little bit of rugelach in the sukkah. That was it. They said, nah, come on, today's different. Today it's different. Because they're the greatest of the generation. So everything's different. Okay. Worth it just to see it. Just see the smile on his face. So he's the top of the list. He should be well. So, you get somebody like that. That's what we call, a Rebbe's Rebbe. He's like the top of the list. Top of the list. He deserves a lot more respect. I don't think there's any question. Someone once commented, he walks in the room, it's like the parting of the sea, right? So people say, come on, isn't that idolatry? No. You know what they worship? They worship the Torah knowledge. That's what they worship. They worship what he knows. And how many hours and hours and hours and lack of sleep that he got to learn. And the books that he's written and the things that he's done. So he told me once in the name of Rav Nachman of Breslov. Nachman of Breslov. Rav Nachman says, it's always good It's always good to have misnagdim, right? Meaning people against you. Why is it good? Because that means your ideas have to be that much stronger because people are going to fight against you. Very good. So Mary would say, tongue in cheek, he said, Hasidim, people that follow me, I don't have too many. Misnagdim, which means people against, he goes, that I have plenty. You have plenty of people out against me. Doesn't stop it. Totally doesn't stop it. Yeah, and he could care less. But he's got world-class knowledge that very few in any generation have. Very few. Which I've been privy to see. But you see that, continuation. It's pretty amazing. Of all the people it's connected to in the previous generation. Right? All the great rabbis of the previous generation. Now, that's a totally different level of knowledge. Totally different level of knowledge. I'll tell you one thing he taught me, just on this topic. He once told me he had a doubt about a certain thing, and he wasn't so sure which way to go. And he said on that I was stringent. So then a few minutes later, I asked him again. And he said, I thought like this, I thought like that. Said this proof, knocked it off, whatever. And I was stringent. So then I asked him a third time. Never do this. But I asked him a third time because I wanted an answer. I asked him. He looked at me and he said, I'll tell you what the Pirke Avos said. Brother of Israel Zev Soloveitchik, blessed memory, said, son of Rav Chaim Brisker. He said, better to say I don't know than to give a klutz teretz, than to give an answer that's not a real answer. Like you're just like, you're like you're fishing for an answer. He said, better to say you don't know. That's what the Pirke Avos said. So he said, you can say in my name. You say in my name, Moshe Sternbuch said, I don't know. I don't know. Now, 2 minutes later, I looked over, he goes, I don't know, don't ask. I said, how'd you know I was going to say anything? He goes, I know you were ready. So better say you don't know. Or you say, I have to look it up, not sure. See, that's real greatness. We think we have to give an answer straight away. Someone asks something, we have to say something straight away. Either we're not sure it's 100% true. Got to answer, because this is the only time. You're never going to get them again. Maybe. Had that also a number of times. Had somebody, and who knows when this topic's ever going to come up again. Right? And so you try, okay? Try and get them this way, that way, whatever. Doesn't always work out. Right? But at the end of the day, we feel we need to answer. Even if it's not a good answer. Because we got to say, come on, we got an opportunity here. Okay. But if you're not sure in the answer, better to say, okay, let me research, I'll get back to you. Because, you lost the moment. Maybe you lost the moment. But isn't it better to say you're not sure? You better say you're not sure. If the Torah giant of the generation said, I don't know, so better say you don't know. You say, it's a good question, I'll get back to you. Right? And everyone knows everything like the back of their hand. And can quote it verbatim. Some can. But then you get into like complex things. And people throw something out there, not necessarily knowing it's much more complex, but it is. And then they expect an answer on the spot. Well, some things you got to think. Some things take time. Got to investigate. In one example, ask for every certain question. And so he asked me, he says, so what do you think? So what do you think? So I opened my mouth and he said, I didn't tell you to give me an answer. Think. Yeah. Now, this case I thought was really open and shut. And according to one of the responses he wrote, there's one of the Torah giants of the last generation said exactly that. So it was pretty, So he says it's much more complex. He gave me the reason, whatever. Whatever it was, he says one of the more complex things he had to deal with. He says you don't necessarily answer off the cuff if it's complex. You gotta think. If it's something black and white, okay. If it's something black and white, it's a different issue. Lesson over this. Okay, this is Allah. Oh, maybe it's different opinion, whatever, good. Right? Whatever it may be. Some things are much more clear cut. Much more clear cut. But things that are less clear cut, things that, may have to think about. Now, that doesn't show ignorance. It shows it's complex. You want to think about it. Now, if a person made a mistake, okay, means the person is human, can make mistakes. But you got to be careful. A person can permit things that are not permissible. Yeah. Something that they eat, maybe traits, maybe not. There's serious repercussions. In certain things. Maybe in a lot of things. So the question is, where's the information lacking? What are they missing? Is it something egregious, something obvious? Is it something, let's say, the difference of opinion in the later commentaries, you went according to the wrong one. Okay, that can be a mistake. But a rabbinic court judge makes such a mistake, there's a question. Would he have to pay the damages done? So it depends what the mistake is. Very complex. This is extremely complex according to Jewish law. Yeah, what level of mistake it was, who holds like that, who doesn't hold like that, extremely complex. So it depends on the mistake. Person makes enough mistakes, what's going to happen? Don't trust them. Okay. They can make it, a person makes an egregious mistake. Let's say in business, you're in trouble. You made a minor mistake, this and that. Okay. You keep making the same mistake or other mistakes, you're in trouble. I know of a story somewhat recent. Someone worked for a company many, many years. They made a mistake. They got more scrutinized. A few more mistakes, they lost their job. Yeah. That can happen. Because then you're not trusted. Then they lose trust. Then they lose faith in you. Okay. That's in any profession. An honest mistake is an honest mistake. Okay, again, depending where it is. But it can have catastrophic results. There are many stories where, let's say they're marital problems. Or even if not, a person goes to a therapist, let's say. I want to discuss certain things. The therapist is not licensed. That therapist messed them up, sure. Can someone who's licensed mess someone up? Yeah, they can also do that. If someone hasn't been watched, someone really hasn't been trained, most likely they're going to cause problems somewhere down the line. They may have success. They may very well have success. Yeah. But down the line, they'll get caught eventually. And there's stories like this. I mean, I always say fact is greater than fiction. But you have cases like this. Where people got themselves in different positions. Let's say high-level positions, they have no credentials. It's mind-boggling how it could happen. But they had no credentials. It happened in any profession. Usually, rabbis are no different. Yeah, you can have quacks out there. You can have, person can take, rabbinical tests, this and that. I would say some are worth more. what's written on the piece of paper, some worth less. Okay. They've done the material, but what's the most important thing? Yes, they have to have knowledge, true. What's even more important than that? When they have to go to somebody to get advice, where do they go to? I know somebody that had, great resume, work with returnees to Judaism and and converts, many, many years. Beautiful resume, one thing lacking on the resume. Anyone who reads it will see it stands out. Doesn't say who they learn by or who they go to ask questions. That's a major thing. It's a major thing. I just heard recently a podcast someone was saying that, they interviewed for a job. I think in a certain yeshiva or whatever it was. And he had credentials. He had real credentials. One interviewing, the yeshiva asked him, who's your das Torah? Who do you go to when you have questions? Do you go to your Rosh Yeshiva? You speak to him. I say, yeah, well, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I want to throw him out. Totally want to throw him out. He said, I'm not interested. I want to know when you have a question, who you go to. I said, well, look at my credentials, this and that. Wanted to make sure he had someone in his life he goes to when he's got questions. Right? What does that show? It shows we don't know everything. It shows that we have our own biases. We absolutely have our own biases. Because we have our own biases, sometimes we can't see things that are clear. You can't see it. Right? You gotta take yourself out of it. You can ask someone else who's more less biased. Or let's say better, non-biased. Based on that's pretty crucial. That is pretty crucial. So person can have the greatest knowledge. One of the things it says also in Pirke Avos, we'll get there one day. Know when. We'll get there. It says you have to know your place. You have to know when it's beyond you. And there are people so want to help. They have their, their heart's in the right place. Heart 100% in the right place. What's the problem? Not qualified over here. It's above them. Or some people would say it's above their pay grade. Okay. It's above them. They got to know when to say it. I don't know. I have to ask. To confer with my colleagues. Without blowing off someone, it's whatever. These are real questions. These things are more complex. They don't want to take responsibility for themselves. They don't think they have the shoulders to answer, or they're not sure. Even better, they're not sure. Could be like this, could be like that. Right? They want someone who's totally unbiased. So it's mind-boggling, in some ways, that some people think, their knowledge is as great as anyone else's. What's the hardest thing, I think, for a non-Jew in the process of conversion? Besides moving to a community. That's probably the hardest thing. Right? What's one of the hardest things besides that? It's listening to rabbinic guidance. Because the rabbi's this, the rabbi's that. Other that, priests and this and that, and I've been right. So what makes what you say any truer? They also had knowledge. Yeah. Good. It's a hard thing. In some ways, I think it should be easier, even though there is a lot of fraud out there. But I would think in some ways it's easier because I know what the truth is. Do whatever it takes to get to the truth. Makes sense. But to listen is a harder thing. And sometimes hearing what the truth is, people say, well, maybe I want a second opinion. Okay. But listening to someone when it's hard it's a test. It's a big test. And there are people that say, God will speak to me. I'll take care of it on my own. I'll get to know it, whatever. And they go on their own. And I can tell you 100% of the time that will end up in a disaster. People can't navigate on their own. You can read a lot of books, can have a lot of knowledge. Remember, I just said this parable over Shabbos table. Imagine somebody before YouTube, right? Someone, reads a whole bunch of books about learning how to swim. Beautiful. Yeah. Someone then takes them, throws them into the pool. Deep end of the pool. What's going to happen? Bloop, bloop, bloop. They're going to drown. Why are they going to drown? Because they don't have practical experience. They read the books. They say, oh, this, that. By the time, they start to figure out things, maybe they're already drowned. All right, too late. So the other person's going to, you have to read books. Right? You have to have good reference books. Very good. Going through, reference books is a must at the same time. There are a lot of in-between cases that the reference books don't deal with. So that needs to be answered. Now you can say, well, maybe it's similar to this, maybe not. Right? I'll give one example. I see a bunch of questions here. Deal with them. Second, somebody goes to a rabbinical court. They gave him Kitzur Shulchan Aruch to go through. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged version of the Code of Jewish Law, covers a lot of topics. Blessings, Shabbos, festivals. So they're learning the laws of Shabbos. Now, this was it was English Hebrew, and there were certain things that were not translated. Right? Certain terms. So what was the topic? Topic was about carrying on Shabbos without an Eruv. Right? The carrying from a private domain to a public thoroughfare, or vice versa. So if you carry from something, even if it's permissible, let's say a prayer book, you don't have an Eruv, you walked a certain amount from your house to the street, you walked whatever Torah prohibition. So they're going through these laws. So the rabbinical court asked them, well, did you have any questions? So he said, yeah, there were two words over here that were transliterated, but were not translated. So we weren't sure what they meant. I don't know, they could look it up, whatever it was. They didn't know what they meant. What were the two terms? The terms were a Reshut HaRabim and a Reshut HaYachid. What's a Reshut HaRabim? A public domain. What's a Reshut HaYachid? A private thoroughfare. Now, the whole chapter or chapters are speaking about carrying from a private domain to a public thoroughfare or vice versa. These two words, they didn't understand what it meant. So what do you have? They didn't understand anything. The whole chapter is speaking about carrying from one place to another. They didn't know what the words meant, which domain was what, or that even what it meant. So you can say, well, anyone could read it. True. But here's a very good example. So now you can say, oh, okay, it's a lot easier. Now I go to Rabbi Dr. Google. Okay. But, so you put into Google or Bing or whatever, you put in Reshut HaYachid or Reshut HaRabim, it'll tell you what it means. Okay. This is before that. They didn't have a dictionary to look up, whatever. They didn't have any way to look it up. Right? Let's say, make it very easy. So in that case, they didn't understand anything. Now, again, most of the book is translated, so you don't have a problem. But there are things that are going to come up that people won't know, or they won't understand, or it won't be clear. Now, maybe some things are, some things aren't, whatever it may be. But I've seen many times, a person could read it and say, okay. They say, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or does this apply, that apply? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But how are you going to know if it does? So they say, very good, I'll go to Rabbi Dr. Google. It's blackout. Yeah. No Wi-Fi. Right? No hotspot. Nothing. Blackout. What are you going to do? You don't know. You have to wait till power comes back on to go online. Okay. But how you going to know what to do? Right. A person needs someone to guide them. Because things that you might think might apply, maybe they do apply. Right? I'll give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it does. Okay. But maybe it doesn't. Right? You can't make assumptions. If you know how let's say, you know how the general rule works. So now you say, okay, I want to apply this to that. Is that the same thing? Maybe. Or maybe not. So book knowledge is worth something. Person's going to have questions, so in between. Quiet. Someone always needs a guide. It's no question. Things may be not as clear cut as we think. Yeah, somebody asked, you mentioned 70 faces of Torah. Can I elaborate? So there are, I mentioned, people like to focus on different things. Right? Jewish law, every person has to know. Right? Even a non-Jew, what applies to them in the Noahide laws. Yeah, for Jews, it's a lot more complex, a lot more to know. Blessings, kashrus, other things. Now, even with that, let's say, there are different types, there are 13 ways of biblical exegesis that we say every day. So there are different ways to analyze Torah. Now, a person may say, is that the only way? Is that the exhaustive list? So a person has to realize one thing. People have different strengths and different ways of looking at things. I've had people tell me they like more esoteric things, i.e., deeper things. Deeper things meaning, or can mean, let's say, Kabbalah. They're drawn to that. Their soul is drawn to that. Okay. There are people less drawn to that, more drawn to Musar, ethics. Drawn to that. Now again, doesn't that mean they have to know Chumash also? Yes. Doesn't that mean they have to know Jewish philosophy? Yes. Doesn't mean they have to know Jewish law? Yes. A lot of things you have to know. But someone may have an affinity towards, other things as well. Now, that has to be specifically within the realm of Torah. That means 70 phases of Torah does not mean a conservative way of looking at things, i.e., as in the conservative movement or reform movement or reconstructionist movement, or let's say that's within the 70 phases. That's not. Because the Torah says you can never go against what Moshe Rabbeinu says. God says to the entire Jewish nation in front of 2 to 3 million people. What does God say? Moses, my trusted servant, never go against him. Which kind of makes what Christianity and other religions, okay. Why we're not chosen anymore and how they look at it, fine. But these other movements, where do you see the Torah allows me to pick and choose? Common question I always have to people. Where do you see, like, if you're in the reform line, when God gave the Torah, you didn't get any mitzvahs. You're in the conservative line, you got a few more. When you're in the Orthodox line, you got all the mitzvahs. Where does it say that? Or where's the person say, well, I'm not Orthodox? Okay. I would never be reformed, so I'm conservative, but they have no idea what conservative is. They have no idea what the movement stands for. Right? Or, in other countries, conservative may be progressive, maybe liberal. Liberal's more like reform, so I don't know. Maybe they'll say it's traditional, progressive, I don't know, whatever it is. But where do you see the Torah tells me I can do whatever I want? if it doesn't fit my world outlook. Where do you see that? Doesn't say it anywhere. God says you got to keep it. That's it. You don't have a choice if you're born a Jew. I mean, you could always choose not to keep it. But where's the person say, I'm going to make Torah in my own image? Right? Doesn't the Torah say we're all creating God's image? Very good. So you want to make the Torah in your own image. Okay. Never going to work. Never be able to pass it down to the next generation. Well, what's the bottom line over here? The bottom line is you got to be within certain parameters. Certain parameters means I can't just do whatever I want. That's not what it means. Now, if a person wants to know, okay, I've heard this also, people say, let's rebuild the temple. Great. Can't do that. Right? Can't do that. Politically, for sure, you can't do it. Bring, every year someone tries to bring in a sheep, try and go onto the Temple Mount. It ain't happening. Arabs, the police are not going to allow you to do it. Politically. Forget about, the level of impurity and going to the mikveh doesn't help. Going on the Temple Mount. Right? Certainly for Jews. I would tell any non-Jew, right, before they convert, you come to Israel, you want to go on the Temple Mount? Not a problem. Absolutely not a problem. Yeah, it doesn't matter if your soul got messed up, was on Mount Sinai, you can't prove it, this, that, irrelevant. Person has the status of a non-Jew, you can go up in Temple Mount as much as you want. Certainly not a threat to the Arabs, no question. You're certainly not going to get spiritually cut off because you're not Jewish. Right? So for a Jew, it's a much bigger problem. Right? I've spoken about that before, not the topic now, but it's a much bigger problem. Much bigger problem. But you can't do it. It's impossible to do. Yeah. So people think, but, shouldn't we try? You got the Temple Institute, making, trying to make different, vessels that are going to be ready, for the temple whenever the temple is going to be rebuilt. Okay. A lot of people don't hold what they're doing. They don't, they don't hold what, they don't hold the what, they don't hold the what they're doing. Okay. So very good. So can't just do what you want. Right? 100%. Right? 100%. You cannot just do, you can't just do what you want. So my simple answer would be, so they're going to claim, I can't do what I want. And there's to say what you say is right, it's the same Torah, blah, blah, blah. Okay. We have answers for this. That's not really the point. They're saying, I want to pick and choose and do what I want. Okay. The Torah doesn't tell me that. So there are different ways of looking at Torah. Go look at it midrashically. Again, I still have to hold by Jewish law. That doesn't change. I can have a more of an affinity. That's what I meant. I can have a more of affinity to learning midrash, to learning Jewish law. Some people love a lot of details. They love Jewish law. Okay. Some people into Mussar, into ethics. Okay. Some people into Jewish philosophy. Okay. Some people into Chumash, Tanakh. Very good. No issues. As long as you're within the parameters of Torah. If you're not within the parameters of Torah, then that doesn't apply. Picking and choosing and doing things that most people don't do, or holding according to certain opinions we don't hold by. Someone could do it. Doesn't mean it's going to be accepted. And when they do something like that, what's going to happen? They're going to be ostracized. People are going to look at them, and say, come on, this is not really authentic. All right, I'll give you an example. There's a group, supposedly they claim within Orthodox, they call it open Orthodoxy. Now, why do they call it open Orthodoxy? Yeah, and what's the difference? What's the difference between that and, let's say, modern Orthodox and ultra Orthodox? So first of all, there's a difference in the way people dress. Okay, it's one issue. right? A major issue between, let's say, ultra-Orthodox and modern Orthodox, how you view the world, how you view the secular world. Some people, maybe a lot of people, modern Orthodox world, have TVs, watch movies. Yeah, I'm not saying where they struggle with it, whatever, they think it's okay. Or go to ball games. Secular education for the sake of secular education. Yeah. That's a major difference in philosophical outlook. And Torah learning, also, in some cases, very different. Someone will say, I work and I learn a couple hours a day and whatever, and I want my kids to do that. Okay. That's their ideal. Not that a person to try and sit and learn as long as they can, whatever. That's not their ideal. By some. I'm not going to say by everybody. By some. So the major difference in outlook. The ultra-Orthodox community, right? As we said before, how do we define success? In learning. Not just in money, in learning. What about Hasidim? So Hasidim, after they get married, for a few years, they'll sit and learn and they go into business. Okay, that's what they do. In the yeshiva world, they'll sit and learn as long as possible. Then they'll go out and get a job, whatever. Wives will help support, family help support for a certain amount of time. Okay. Open Orthodox is a different thing. Different thing. Because they're relying on things you should never rely on. And not all of them believe God gave the Torah from Mount Sinai. Shocking. So why they call themselves Orthodox? Good question. Good question. But they can't be trusted. That's outside the parameters. So I would say, fine. You want to call yourself conservative? I don't have a problem with it. Traditional conservative, whatever you want to call yourself. I don't have a problem with it. But if you're going to say you're Orthodox and you go against Orthodox principles of what the Torah says, that's a problem. That for sure is a problem. So their authenticity, we're not going to respect. It's not a question necessarily of picking and choosing, right? I wouldn't necessarily go that far. But they're holding by things that we don't hold by. That I would say, call yourself conservative, call yourself reform. I don't know. Call yourself some other name. I don't like names per se, but puts people into a box a little bit. But in general, I would say, call yourself something else. Do not call yourself Orthodox, because a lot of things about what you do are not Orthodox. Right? So the point here is, the long, short answer is that we're talking about 70 faces of Torah, as long as it's within the parameters of Torah itself, or the way we look at Torah, the way we understand Torah. So again, people have an affinity to, they enjoy learning Musar more. Okay. Some people enjoy Midrash more. Some people other. Okay. Wherever the soul is drawn, that's within Torah. But you got to remember, there's Jewish law. I got to keep what it says. I got to keep on the straight and narrow path. Right? So if you're within those parameters, there are a lot of different ways to look at Torah. Okay. People into Kabbalah, very good. But that doesn't trump everything. Even if a person's more into Musar or more into Jewish philosophy, you're not learning that all day long. However much time, let's say, for example, a person has, I don't know, an hour a day to learn, 2 hours a day to learn. Yeah. For those 2 hours, not learning one thing. Even if they have more an affinity to it. Okay. You want to spend the first hour doing it, very good. First 45 minutes and then split up the rest of the time. Fine. But there are other things you have to know in order to keep what the Torah says. So even if you have an affinity towards that, you can't spend all the time doing that, because then you'll never get anywhere. And that was one of the claims that the Vilna Gaon of Elijah Vilna more than 250 years ago had against the Hasidim of that time. Because all they did was learn Musar. Right? The Vilna Gaon said as Rav Chaim of Volozhin brings it down in his book Nefesh HaChaim, Soul of Life, literally. So he says in the fourth gate, he says you can go to certain communities, you don't find one Gemara. You don't find one set of Talmud in the community. You'll find Path of the Just, you find Gates of Repentance, you find books of Hasidus, you'll find the Tanya, you find other things, very good, but you don't find the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes of Torah learning is Gemara. That's what it is. For men, not for women. But that's the meat, that's the source of all Torah. Besides the Torah itself, it's commentary on the Torah. Very good. So Rav Chaim of Volozhin, famous student of the Vilna Gaon, said, how can you find a community of people that don't have a Gemara at all? There's no Talmud whatsoever in the city. And all they're learning is ethics all day long. That's a problem. That's a problem. You tell me some people like to meditate, and, go in the woods and whatever, contemplate the world, very good. Does that come at the expense of praying 3 times a day as a Jew? If you're a guy? No. You're allowed to do it within reason. But if you have 3 times a day, you got to pray, and whatever they correspond to, whether it, let's say it corresponds to sacrifice, whatever, you got to pray with people. You just go in the, you just go in the forest and hang out there all day, or part of the day, and that's going to take you away from praying with everyone else. I'm not saying a person can't meditate. I'm not saying once in a while a person can't do that, but that doesn't come at the expense of praying 3 times a day with a minyan. Doesn't come at that expense. So you got to be grounded also, right? So comes along Rav Chaim Volozhin and says, okay, you want to learn Musar, very good, but Musar does not come at the expense of the most important thing, which is learning Gemara. That's the meat and potatoes. Now, for a woman, it might be different, okay? When she has time to learn, she wants to spend more time doing that. She also has to know Jewish law, what to do and how to make blessings and, kashrus and Shabbos and different things. Okay. One thing does not necessarily come at the expense of the other, right? That's the point. So if you're within certain parameters, very good. So there are different ways to look at things. Okay. Like I said, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with that. But if you're going to spend your whole time doing that, different issue, right? Especially if you're outside those parameters. Someone here mentions, thinking about the light source, we mentioned beginning of Genesis being from the mineral zinc, right? Research that when embryos fertilized, there is light. Okay, but I don't think that's what it's talking about. It's talking about a spiritual thing. It's talking about the spiritual light that's going to be saved for the righteous in the world to come. Nothing physical. Spirit, Rashi says. It's a very basic question. If there's no physical light until day 4, where the light comes from? So Rashi says that light was hidden. It's a spiritual light for the righteous, whatever that means. It's a spiritual light for the righteous in the world to come. So the light being from zinc had nothing to do with this. Talking spiritual, not physical, had nothing to do with anything physical. Yeah, it's only spiritual. Right? It only has to do in spiritual terms. And again, what is that light? What does that spiritual light mean? So the only thing I can tell you is anyone's ever had an out-of-body experience, usually, as the Zohar says, there's 2 things that happen. First is that they see the light flash before their eyes. They see everything they've ever done in their life, now all their thoughts flash before their eyes very quickly, and they're drawn to the spiritual light. They're drawn to a whatever, bright light, whatever it may be. Maybe that's what it's talking about. Yeah, it's spiritual light. So you're going to tell me, okay, when a person dies, they see this, this light, but again, they're a soul, right? So right? See something bright, whatever that is. So it's a spiritual thing, right? Spiritual thing, not a physical thing. Moab was incestuous, right? Moab, again, Lot had 2 daughters. They thought the world was destroyed. The only person left was them and their father. So they got the father drunk, and that's what happened. Right? That's what happened. Who came out of Moab? Right? It was Ruth. So Moab came, right. So Moab came from an incestuous relationship. The offspring of Moab, direct offspring, was Ruth. Direct offspring of Ruth, 3 generations later, is none other than King David. Someone I mentioned about credentials, right? Some areas I personally study, I have to research so much because no one knows the answer. Okay. Yeah, the thing is, in anything, whether it's medicine, person's going to go to a doctor, they want to hear references, testimonials. Yeah, that this person knows what they're doing and they're good. Maybe they have good bedside manner also, right? Right? They're going to go, let's say, I don't know, person's got a car to be fixed. You're not going to go to just anybody. I mean, sometimes you have no choice. But you're going to go to someone who has a good reputation, knows what they're doing. Yeah, now some may be cheaper, some not, whatever it is. So any purchase or having something fixed, whatever it may be, they'll do the research, right? They'll do the research to see if the person in this field is good or not. Now, you could have people lie. Let's say people have websites or whatever, and you get these testimonials, they're all fake. Could be. Right? Could be. How do you know if they're real or not? Good question. Right? So I'd say anyone who's gonna, again, getting the car fixed is a good example. Right? You speak to people who've had their car fixed by the person. You try and get testimonies. If there are people you ask, where do you go to get your car fixed? And they tell you whatever. So it's firsthand experience. Sometimes things are misleading online. People, have all these great testimonials. Some of them may be doctors. Some of them, they may pay people to put testimonials on them. Very well be. And it's not unheard of. Definitely not unheard of. There is a very serious question if someone put a negative test, let's say, someone did business with somebody and they had a bad result. They don't like what happened. Are they allowed to put a negative testimonial up there? That's a problem. That's a problem speaking Lashon Hara. But you're guarding people against damage that could be caused. So there are certain conditions you'll be allowed to. Right? You'd be allowed to. But in general, giving a negative review should be forbidden because of Lashon Hara. Right? In general, I'm not saying that's the final law. But like anything else, you're going to do the research, and you should do proper research in order to get the best results that you want. I had somebody, and I think with rabbis also, I don't think it's any different, right? You got to check them out to see what people have to say about them. Are they legitimate? A lot of fraud out there, unfortunately. A lot of fraud. So that being the case, that being the case, you got to be careful, right? I had somebody once, tell me, I contacted them, they contacted me, and they said, yeah, we're going to do some research to get back to you. So I said, okay. A few days later, when I was in the States, they get back to me and it's like, wow, do you know who your rabbi is and this and that? I'm, of course, I've been close to him 10 years. Do you know the books he's written and what he's done? I said, of course. I said, I know exactly who he is. I felt in my element, when I was there last week, when I was there, and his sons I know very well. His grandkids I know. So part of the furniture there, so to speak. So, that's a different that's a different thing. That's a different thing. But again, could people have false things out there about themselves? Sure. Could they pay people? Could they pay people to write things, good things about them? Yeah. Could? Could people pay people to come to their events? Yes, they could. Right? Doesn't mean they have any value themselves. They're paying people to come. What does that tell you? That's also a problem. So a person has to know. A person has to do proper research. Right? So doing research can take time. But remember one thing. If you're going to buy something of significant value, you're not going to buy it and fork money over until you know this is the best thing you can get. And you're going to go on testimonials. People have had it. You got to do a lot of research before you do it. Right? So again, I'm just pointing out, it's, no different for any other thing you would buy that is significant. If it's not so significant, if it's something wouldn't cost you that much, okay. But still, you don't want to buy a lemon. You don't want to buy something that it's going to break 20 minutes later, or an hour later, or whatever. So if you did that, you bought something expensive, it could break this, that, okay. But if you're buying a major thing, a major appliance, let's say, person buys a major appliance, you want to know what's out there, what people say about it, how reliable it is. So you do the research. So the question is, okay, right? But you have to research so much because no one knows the answer. Well, that's a problem. Why don't people know the answer? See, I think what part of the issue is that, yeah, that could be part of it, where people don't know, or you get contradictory opinions. Some people say this thing is the greatest thing since sliced cheese. Another person will say it's on a joke. Now, remember, this is good after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Remember, anything you buy, also you have to have luck with. First, you buy a brand new car, it could be 11. You're going to say cars made today. You say, oh, maybe they should be better, but older cars last longer. They're made better, made stronger. Everything stays made out of plastic. Yeah. Especially, certain cars that, they have a strong electrical system, whatever, that electrical system goes out. The car's never the same. So any appliance a person buys, any car a person buys or whatever, you have to have a certain level of luck with it. Because at the end of the day, if you did all the research, right, that's where it kind of comes in. Even if you did all the research, very good. Yeah, so okay, this is the one, it should last, this, that, very good. It's got a good name, good brand, fine. Then you have all kinds of problems with it. You're going to say, but what about all the research and everything else? So that's all true when you have to make a decision. So you did the research, you did everything you could, and you bought a lemon. Why'd you buy a lemon? Because he wanted you to buy a lemon. He wanted you to lose out. I don't know why. I know someone bought, a relatively new car, let's say a few years old, 3-4 years old. They replaced the whole transmission. The whole transmission. Cost about, I don't know, $8,000, $9,000, $7,000, whatever it was. Buying a second-hand car here is like, because taxes are so high, it's almost like you buy a brand new car in the States or anywhere else. Just about. Yeah. So he bought a car. Okay, I wouldn't say it's got the greatest name. Okay. Doesn't really matter. But if it's a couple years old, you don't expect the whole engine to blow. Replace the whole engine? I mean, I have cars, it's kind of old, so, not a lot of issues with it. Also, and the pistons I had to replace. Other things, probably everything inside is almost brand new over the years. I don't drive it that much, but doesn't really matter. You have to have luck with the car also. So if you do the research, it's got a great name, right? Whatever it is, the appliance, the car, whatever it may be. Is that a guarantee that's going to run the way you want for so many years? No. But you're buying it based on what? On what people say and the credibility of the company. That's what you're buying on. Now, other things could happen. You say, okay, bought a car, got it tested, everything's good. Yeah, then you had problems. But the company's got a good name. Yeah, the car itself has a good name. And also would add a Corolla. That's a good name here. And all kinds of problems with it. It's an older car, it doesn't matter. It wasn't heavy on mileage. A lot of problems. A lot of different things. Now, basically, it's like on its last legs. But in general, why should that happen? Got a good name. Let's say Toyota Corolla's got a good name. Good. Yeah, good customer service. Good. You got all the parts here. Not a problem. There's that. And things happen. Yeah, things can happen. So just because you did all your research, keep in mind, doesn't mean that you say, oh, I bought this Toyota Corolla. It's only got, I don't know, it's only got 100,000 kilometers on it. It's got low mileage. Very good. So you say, so yeah, you're telling me that's been driven a lot and this and that. So okay, so we can run into problems. Okay. Shouldn't run into so many problems. Just shouldn't. It's kept in good condition. But again, I'm not saying the way the person drives it. They're not running into the ground. They're careful, this, that. They, maintenance the way it should be. Very good. They should have major problems. And what happens if you do? What happens? Murphy's Law, Murphy's style, make them Jewish. What happens if it does? That's out of your realm over here. That means you bought a lemon. But you couldn't have known that. The company's got a good name. The car's got a good name. There's nothing wrong with it. Right? Passed all the tests. Very good. So what happened? So now, if you tell me it's normal wear and tear. Normal wear and tear. Okay. That doesn't mean you're being punished, right? How long does a battery last in a car? 3 years? Right? Usually less than 3 years. Right? Up until 3 years. At some point, the battery, oh, what did I do? God punished me. No, it's not necessarily punishment. It's costing you money, but it's normal wear and tear. If it's normal wear and tear, that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different thing. So anything you're going to do research on, you're right. Maybe it's hard to find information. I find it hard to believe today. So much information out there. But yeah. I would think the bigger problem is contradictory information. Some people say it's great. Some people say it's not great. So, how do you read in between? Right? That's a good question. That's a good question. You have to see. Maybe someone's saying it's bad or whatever. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're a bad experience. Maybe other things. I don't know. Right? But you have to be able to weed through that. Someone says, and that this comes up a lot also, and that is, I can't do anything right. It's very stressful and frustrating. Yeah. Very common. And Mr. S will tell you, pulling your weight, you're not worth anything, feel like a piece of dirt. I'll tell you personal experience. I won't go into all the details. Personal experience. When a person's feeling down, right? They're feeling, let's say squeezed in different directions, right? What's the part I just read from Miles Peterman, early Miles Peterman, should be well. And he was saying that there's an unbelievable segula. Segula means like a good omen to a lot of people will read, let's say, Pirke Avos. Pirke Avos, you have all these animals that say different things in the Torah and prophets. You say that, what's it a good omen for? For parnasa, for livelihood, and for getting married. Finding a proper marriage partner, let's say. All the same parts of Saman, right? Same parts of Bashalach. You say every day, parts of the man came from heaven. You say that every day. It's also supposed to be good for Parnasa. It's also supposed to be good for livelihood. Now, there are things that can offset that. Someone told me I've been saying this for 40 days, whatever. I didn't meet anybody and my financial situation is worse. So my answer was, you keep saying it. You just keep doing it. You don't give up. Right? But he said something else. So Ramayel Biederman said something. And I can tell you it's an instantaneous result. Right? Shortly thereafter, something changed. I don't know why. Exactly why. Right? But again, things come from unexpected sources, we always say. So what did Rav Miles Biederman say? He said when a person it was no, I think it was it's either Rav Miles Biederman or Victor Miller. I think it was Rav Miles Biederman. And he said I think it was Rav Miles Biederman. And he said one of the things a person wants a segula for for any Yeshua, any salvation, right? What is a what it's a good salvation for almost anything, just about anything. He says when you pray, thank God for everything you've ever had in your life. Thank God you were born. Thank God he took care of all your needs from the very beginning. Yeah. Thankful for every last thing God has given you. Not mentioning, you ate an apple, you think about the apple and the apple seed before you eat it. If you make a blessing, you don't make a blessing, whatever it is. If you're Jew or non-Jew, think about the greatness in it. Thank God, I want to thank you for this beautiful apple. I want to thank you for this peach. I want to thank you, the car didn't break down. I want to thank you for this. It says for Miles Biederman, you say every day when you pray that you thank God for being born. You thank God for every single goodness he's ever given you. He gave some different examples. People did that for instantaneous results. Instantaneous results. Now, other things can block that, right? You have to remember, these things are good to do. But again, at the end of the day, if God wants you, to change your situation, he can change in the blink of an eyelash. But it's not necessarily because of this. And even if he doesn't, let's say things go on and things become harder and they become more difficult. Okay. But isn't this a guarantee? Like someone said, I've been saying Pirke Shira for 40 days and my financial situation got a lot worse. And I didn't meet somebody yet. I told them, you don't give up. It's supposed to help, but there are other things could be blocking that. And God says, I'm not going to give it to you for whatever reason. Maybe he wants to work on your prayer. He wants you to feel absolutely subservient. He wants you to be on the ground. Absolutely with your knees on the ground. Why? Can't answer. But that's what he wants. So he says, you want salvation. When you pray, thank God for being born. Thank God from the very beginning of every goodness he's given. I'm always looking for instantaneous results, right? I also don't want to work so hard, right? So let the floodgates open, however they may. Let them open. Person struggling, let's say, financially or health-wise, or someone's bothering you, whatever, right? Opens up doors in many ways. Now God can say, I'm not going to change it. And I'm going to make you squeeze, I'm going to squeeze you more, whatever the situation is. So I read about this last week or a few weeks ago. And I said, okay, let's see. I'm always open to new things. He brought it down from generations of great rabbis who said, yeah, this is something that's been checked, it's proven, whatever. I said, okay, why not? Again, is that a guarantee? Remember, it's not a guarantee. All these things are no quick fixes. Yeah. So I was like, okay, something's going to give. I was like, something has to give somewhere, at some point. Because God just wants to bury you in the ground, not kill you, but kill you in other ways. So I said, okay. Like, I don't know what you want over here. doing what I can do. I can't do more than I can do, and that's it. Feeling squeeze, 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 squeeze. Yeah, like no, the bottom of the toothpaste, right? As I would say, right? As Kaufman would say. So what happened? Right? What was the end result? I started saying this, and a few things happened. Like when I say out of the blue, it's out of the blue. Unexpected. Totally unexpected. If you were to ask me on a scale of 1 to 10, where this would come up, either case, where this would come up, where the salvation would come from, you know what the number would be? About 12,250. Yeah, that's not an exaggeration. Like out of nowhere, nowhere, not to be expected. Yeah. Now, did that come from me saying, God, every day I say, you're the one in charge. Can't do anything else. You're the one calling the shots, not me. Okay. Yeah. But when I started saying, not only that, but thank him for being born. And even when I didn't do the right thing, he still kept me alive. He get me in a car crash, didn't get me, physical ailments, so to speak. Never broke any bones, other things. Protected me. Maybe I didn't do the right thing and whatever. Okay. Telling you when I said that, over the span of, let's say, a week, even less, probably. A few things happened, a few weeks, let's say. Let's say a few weeks. That opened up a couple doors, unexpected, out of nowhere. Now, was it definitely from that? I have no idea. Not a prophet, not the son of a prophet. I don't know. No. But I can tell you shortly thereafter, things changed. Things literally changed. In a major way. In a major way. They always say, like, when you're getting squeezed like the bottom of the toothpaste, then all of a sudden something happens. Like, oh, look, this happened. The other thing happens. Like, oh, I'm back in the game. I'm not dead. You feel like sledgehammer, bam, 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 bam. Right? You feel like getting sledgehammered and nothing's happening. Okay, there's some sort of block. Don't know why. Okay. Then all of a sudden the door opens. But just doesn't the door open. The door opened in a major way. When you least expect it. Now again, why do I mention this? Because says Ramayuch Biederman, this is a proven thing. You say that however many times a day, doesn't matter. Guaranteed you should have salvation, whatever it is. Now you gotta say, I did it for a week, didn't happen. Okay. Yeah. Do it for 2 weeks, do it for a month, do it for 6 months. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You don't give up. See, people give up too fast. I can say the same thing about myself. I could have given up many, many times. Many, many times. Could have easily given up. I said, I'm stuck with certain things. Okay. So since I'm stuck with it, I got to make the best of it. Does the best of it mean you're whistling Dixie? No. Could it be like almost unbearable? Sure. Imagine that, person, they're down to the last $1.50. Their last, I don't know, 50 pence, if you're in England, right? Or you got a couple pounds here and there, let's say. You say, listen, I got all these expenses. Okay. What's going to be? Good question. Very, very good question. I had something I pushed off. Pushed off for whatever, a couple weeks. I was like, so what's going to be? I said, I don't know. I said, I got a few weeks. I got different ways to deal with it. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I got my own ideas, and push comes to shove. I always have somewhat of an ace in the hole somewhere, but we'll see. God's gonna say, okay. you know, we'll take care of it. Was it expected? No. Wasn't expected. Totally wasn't expected. But you're gonna say, but you're that far down, right? I just saw someone had posted like, whatever. They needed help. They're like, this person, they're down their last $1.50. I was like, I don't know where things are gonna come from. And they have no idea. They're like on their knees. We always say, Yeshua Hashem Karafai. Salvation of God come with a blink of an eyelash. It can come where you least expect it. We know that. We're going to say, but come on. As we say, they say here in Israel, say, in America and other places also, Yesh Kavod, there's a limit. There's a limit to what I can take. No, what's possible. No, there is no limit. That's a mistake people make. They're like, what does God want from me? You know what he wants? You still put your best foot forward. That's what he wants. The salvation will come where you least expect it. Absolutely where you least expect it. We've seen that. We've absolutely seen it. Now, is it stressful and frustrating? Oh, yeah. 100%. Anyone who's ever had bills to pay, they have no idea where the money's coming from, and the clock is ticking. Yeah. Been there. You have no idea. Now, might not always look pretty. But a person still has to realize, Bereshit Baruch Kimei Hashemayim ve'Haaretz. God created the heaven and the earth. He's in charge. He's in charge. So I'll tell you what I started doing also. And people are going to look at you funny, but it doesn't really matter. You eat something, thank God I have this apple. Thank God, you gave me this schnitzel. You gave me this chicken. You gave me this whatever. Yeah. You got me to work on time. You didn't make sure my car didn't break down. This has an effect. From Victor Miller, blessed memory, says, doesn't matter if people laugh at you, think you're talking to yourself, that doesn't matter. You're thanking the creator of the world for every last thing you have. Not just in your prayers. You're saying it. I want to thank you for this beautiful apple. I want to thank you, my computer screen didn't break. I want to thank you that, I don't have arthritis. I want to thank you that, you don't have cancer, or if you have cancer, you're in remission, or whatever. By Simchas Torah, saw somebody probably suffering from cancer, members on oxygen at one point, or an IV, or whatever. Saw him once, in synagogue. Saw him also. I mean, he's got no hair. And he looks, I'm not going to say emaciated, but whatever. Probably went through chemotherapy, whatever. Like, we get reminded. We get reminded that, you know what? I don't have it so bad. Even if a person gets hit financially, we've mentioned this many times. That's not like being hit. You're going to say, struggle, how am I going to pay things? Okay. Would you rather have cancer? Would you rather, don't know if you're going to live or die? Would you rather be mentally challenged? Would you rather have dementia? Would you rather have, I don't know, fill in the blank? You're going to say, this is hard. Okay. Not saying not. Not saying that. Right? So obviously, when it comes to livelihood and other things, there could be a block in heaven. Could very well be. Right? So here, try this. See where it goes. Next time you pray, you thank God from the time you were born. You thank him for everything he's given you in this life, even if you didn't deserve it. Even if you did things wrong. Even if you spit in his face. Doesn't matter. Thank him for the fact that he brought you into this world. And he gives you an opportunity to serve him. Right? I would say you can thank him for the parents he gave you. If they abused you, this and that, okay, maybe not. Right? But they brought you into this world. Yeah, you might not have seen eye to eye on everything, okay. But they gave you life. They took care of you. Took care of your needs. They might have been idolaters or other things. They did it. Yeah. So you're thanking him from every last thing that you've done in your fact that everything God's given you, especially being poor. Now again, is that going to be an instant fix? I can't answer. I can tell you over a short period of time, I've been saying this and on a regular basis, saying, thank God my car started off, thank God this happened, like on a regular basis, saying it overnight almost. Almost. Again, I'm not bragging here because I can't say that's 100% what happened. I can't say that. Up until that point, yeah, different things going on. Okay. But I can't say 100% that's the case. But I can tell you, since that, it's been a short amount of time, a very short amount of time, and that changed overnight. So, that's a good, that would be a good thing to try. See, again, I don't want to say, hey, I did it for 2 days, didn't work. I did it for a week, it didn't work. Yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day. God wants to see you really believe it. You're pouring out your heart, right? Why is it a lot of times, I mentioned this many times also, why is it a lot of times our prayers don't get answered? Because in Parshas Veschanon, it says, in Deuteronomy, it says, Moshe Rabbeinu prayed 514 prayers or something, and, wanted to go in, and each prayer was different, and, beseeching God to go into the land. And God finally told him to stop. Because he would have prayed again. God would have accepted his prayer. Now, the word Veschanon comes from the word Techina, means you're praying with all your soul, with everything you have. Supplication, that's the word. So Maravi says, brought this down a number of times. Why does a person's prayers don't get answered? Because they don't pray with supplication. See, if you had a bill to pay tomorrow, let's say, doesn't matter, $500, £1,000, whatever it is, where they got a bill to pay, or they're going to court. They don't know which way it's going to go. You think your prayer is going to be the same as it was before? No, because now you're in desperation mode. And at a certain point, we're all in desperation mode because we want to live. We want to live to the highest standard that God wants, and we don't always do that, and whatever. Okay. What does God want more than anything else? He wants your heart in a platter. He wanted the righteous mothers to be barren so their prayers were so pure. Imagine how pure their prayers were that saved Jewish people from catastrophe later. You say, oh, but God wants to punish them? No, he doesn't want to punish them. But he draws out those things from people that they never thought they had. So this guy's got $1.50 left. He doesn't know what's going to be. And all of a sudden, things change. Things change. Yeah. Because it's so much easier when you're on your knees. When you're on your knees, you're going to say, okay, I don't know what you want here. Doing everything I can. Getting rejected this way, that way, the other way. Things are very hard, right? A lot of people having, struggling financially all over the world, right? Yeah, it's hard. Right? There's no question. So what does God want? He wants more of what you're doing. But he wants supplication. It's not because he wants you to be on your knees and this and that. He wants supplication. Supplication, change things. Invoke God's divine mercy. But thank him for every last thing. And say it. Not enough just to think it, says Victor Miller. Say it. People think you're crazy and you're stupid. Yeah. Say, I want to thank you for this beautiful apple, right? Torah says, mentions a number of times, but put the seed in the fruit. What do you mean put the seed in the fruit? Who cares? God gave you fruit. He created fruit. Very good. Oh, what's the point of saying seeds in the fruit? Because the seeds are what make the fruit. Isn't that obvious? You put the seeds in the ground. Seeds you can't eat, right? A lot of the seeds try and eat, you break your teeth, right? Dentist will thank me for that. Give them a plug. Try and break your, eat a peach pit. Give a peach pit to an animal. They're not going to eat it. It's hard as a rock. The fact that the seed itself in the pit goes in the ground because of the category of what the ground is and what it's made out of, it disintegrates the pit. disintegrates the pit, the seed goes in, and it grows to be a peach tree. And God put that in the DNA of every single seed. So that's why I mentioned many times at the beginning of Genesis, seed in this, seed in that. Why did you tell me created and fed it? Why talk about the seeds? Because look at the DNA of the seeds. I was reading something today by Victor Miller. He says, you know what the DNA in that is? That double helix, like this, that goes into a seed. You know what that seed does and what the power of it is? You're not just eating a peach, you're eating the DNA's in that peach. Like I said, I want to thank you. It's a beautiful peach. Thank you for this glass of water. It's very thirsty. Not just you make the blessing. Think about it for a second, what you're doing. When you do it, it has more of an effect. Again, is that going to change things overnight? It'll change the way you look at things. Change the way you see things. Right? But again, all these things are not a quick fix. Right? I think a person should do them. But it's not a quick fix. Right? But it changes the way you think about things. All right, question. Somebody says, we explain the order of the Torah, studying that each person study daily. Yeah, fixed daily learning, not all the Torah that one learns. Again, person got an obligation. Person got an obligation to learn a certain amount every day. What they should focus on? Good. Right? That's the whole question. But I said, you got to be within the parameters. Right? You got to be within the parameters. I.e., one should learn other books outside the fixed study regimen. If they're within Torah, yes. 100%. Person, even a person, let's say, has a fixed amount of time to learn. Now, let's say they have other time. Can they learn other things outside of what they normally learn every day? Yes. Highly recommended. So the question is, someone should read from the Torah, then the prophets, then the holy writings, right? The Ksuvins, and then learn Kabbalah, then Mishna and Talmud, or whatever. Okay, so I'll say like this. And, I made a note to myself, and we'll see how it goes. Because I say it every year, I haven't done what I want to set out to do. And that is learn Chumash properly every week. Right? There's Segula for long life. It's an omen, the Pirke Avos says, and others bring it down also, that you read the Torah twice, Parsha twice, and they are make translations. Or you can read Rashi, or maybe read it in English, right? Again, if you're a Jew. So very good. So what do some people do? Some people just sort of read through it. They don't think about it. They read through it once, read through it a second time. Do it with the Aramaic translation or Rashi or whatever. That's it. Now, Pirke Avos says, why do people blow it off so much? It's a guarantee for a long life. Guarantee. It's brought down. Guarantee. So why do people blow it off? Good question. Because they're lazy. I got to learn Talmud. Very good. So that takes up all my time. I'm going to find time to do it. But isn't all of Chumash the base of Talmud? Yeah. A lot of things in Tanakh, based in Talmud also. Very good. Right? Explanation meaning. Right? So why do I bring this up? Because I remember there was somebody that every week they would go through Rashi on one aliyah. In other words, there are 7 aliyahs that the Torah is broken up into that you read on Shabbos. So 7 times you stop, and different people are covered, called up to the Torah. So what do they do? So they once a week or twice a week they would go through the Rashi on one aliyah. Now, on one aliyah it could be 20 verses, could be 30 verses, could be 15 verses, whatever it is. So in that week they would focus on one aliyah, and then the next year they would focus on the second one. And then the third year they would focus, let's say, on the third aliyah, etc. And eventually go through the entire Torah with Rashi over 7 years. Right? Over 7 years. Now, you got to find time. If you want to do, let's say, all the Rashis in the Parsha, you're going to find time to do it. So if a person be learning all day, when are you going to find time? Not so easy, because you're only concentrating on one thing. really on one thing, right? So, I also have limited time. So, so, every year we start the Torah again, I always say I should really try and focus, go through all the Rashis in the Parsha, or there's some of the other commentaries, or, whatever it is. So now I'm trying to think of a plan exactly how I'm going to do it, right? When I'm going to find the time, actually to do it. But if someone wants to be a rabbinic scholar, you got to know all 24 books, right? All 24 books means the Torah, the writings, the prophets, right? So starting tomorrow, so since I still have another week off before I go back to learn, so go back to going through Isaiah, which I normally do. Usually in the winter, I usually learn a certain amount after Shabbos on that, and whatever, we'll catch up a little bit now during during the week. But again, it's Tanakh is deep. So if a person wants to be a true rabbinic scholar, you got to know Tanakh very well. A lot of people don't learn Tanakh. There are contradictions from Tanakh into the Torah. So kids learn it, right, very superficially. They learn it to get stories down, whatever. They don't learn it in depth, right? They don't learn it later in depth. I have a lot of fear of heaven also, but it's very rich. I remember once I went with one of my kids, after Shabbos. So I brought a Malbi, which is a major commentary on Torah and on Tanakh, and a Barbanel. Barbanel also one of the great commentaries on the Torah and Tanakh. So people kind of looked at it kind of fun. It's like, oh, he's learning Tanakh because he doesn't know how to learn. Yeah, other people are learning Gemara, they're learning this, they're learning that. It's like, oh, he's just learning, just learning Tanakh. Well, you want to be considered a bona fide rabbinic scholar, you got to know Tanakh also. Right? But it's very rich, right? One day maybe start giving class on Tanakh. Very, very rich. What's going on there? More than meets the eye. Yeah, let me see other questions here. I think that answered that question. Someone asked, someone said, should I study all 70 different ways? No, you don't have to. More confusing, I think. I think a person stick to what's, certain things you have to understand, simple explanation. Certain other things, I would say simple explanation doesn't necessarily work. You see the beginning of the Torah, Rashi says I can only explain this according to a medrash. So whatever, where a person feels they're drawn. Does that mean you have to go through all different, all the different ways of biblical exegesis? No, sometimes here, sometimes there, but you certainly don't have to delve into that. Somebody asked on the 72 names of God, they're not supposed to be spoken out loud. Yeah, not something you should do. It's not something should be done. Right? A person knows that the 72 letter name of God, very good. More than that, don't worry about it. Right? Don't focus on it, don't worry about it, don't lose any sleep over it. Can you leave the TV on, turn on Torah learning prior to Shabbos? Listen, as a non-Jew, you can watch as much Torah, on YouTube you want. Right? When you become a Jew, it's more problematic, right? Much more problematic. Technically, you as a Jew, you could. Let's say there was without changing anything, you have to leave it on the same thing. Right? You can't just change it one thing to another. If you leave it on one thing and just live streams all kinds of different classes, good. Right? Technically it's nothing wrong with it. Right? But again, once a person becomes a Jew, you can't do that. I would say as a non-Jew, person living in the middle of nowhere, so to speak, and that's going to enhance your Shabbos, then yeah, I would listen to classes. I would listen to classes on Shabbos. That would enhance your Shabbos. So in that case, there wouldn't be any limitation. You wouldn't just have to leave it on before. You can just change the channel, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just once, a person would move to a community, I would say that'd be a different issue. Then you would stop all that. So could be someone will say, maybe it's harder to do that. Maybe I shouldn't do it at all now. Yeah, but again, if it's going to enhance someone's Shabbos, then I would say then I would say there's especially, let's say, the long Friday nights, or let's say in the summer, the long Shabbos days, and just person can't, read for so long, you can't sleep for so long, whatever. So, let's say that's going to enhance your Shabbos. That's not a problem. For a non-Jew, it's certainly not a problem. Not a problem at all. I would say until a person moves to the Jewish community, whatever, they can do that, right? That I don't think that would be an issue. You don't have to, you don't have to just leave it on before Shabbos, let's say, or something like that. You could change the channel. You could do, basically do whatever you want. They tell me, but I have to break Shabbos anyway. Good, right? You got to do something on purpose to break it, anyway. But again, in this case, if that's going to enhance someone's Shabbos, which I would think it would, then you shouldn't have any limitation, right? You wouldn't have limitation on that. Somebody asks, someone's considered spiritually dead. Area of life, let's say childless, right? There are 4 things that consider a person if they're dead, right? One of them being they don't have children or they're poor, right? Let's say. What's the way to balance this out? What's the way to balance it out? Even if a person's poor, they don't stay poor forever. Some people maybe stay poor longer than others just because they're in a vicious cycle, and that cycle doesn't end because of the situation that they're in, compounded by, other things. But it doesn't stay that way forever, right? It definitely doesn't stay that way forever. So how do you balance it? Let's say a good example. All right, so poverty can change. Person's situation physically can change when it comes to money. Okay. But what about being childless? Some people don't have kids. So in that sense, they're considered dead. But again, if they're living a life of Torah mitzvahs, even though that's a very hard thing, that a person doesn't have children, right? It's a very, 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 very hard thing. So, they'll have to balance it in other ways. But let's say they have livelihood. I mean, they're rich, but let's say they have livelihood, other things, that are good going on in their lives, that they're not considered dead. Okay, maybe in this aspect they're considered dead. Doesn't mean they're down and out. Doesn't mean, well, they're useless, they can't do anything. Doesn't necessarily mean that. There's an expression, balamea baladea, someone who has 100, meaning if they have money, they're the ones people to listen to. If you're poor, unless or maybe a rabbinic scholar or something else, they have other things to give. No one cares what they have to say. People care what, like, athletes have to say. People care what, or care less, or care more. What, actors or actresses, like, just because they have money, who gives them the right to say anything? So what? They can be derelicts and do all kinds of terrible things. But who says, I should care what they have to say? But a person doesn't have money, like, they're, I would say they have a harder time. In the States and other places, there's a major, major difference between the people that have money and the people that don't. Major, major difference. Here in Israel, it's all the same. Some people have more, some people have less, but they're all in the same boat. Pretty much all in the same boat. Yeah, so the difference between those that have and don't have are not, not that great. Right? It's not that great. But outside of Israel, major difference. Major, major difference. People just getting by or whatever, compared to the people that really have. Yeah, it's major, major difference. I would say, a person's not going to have all 4 things, right? Being blind, I think, is one of them also. That, you consider like you're dead, but you're not going to have all 4 things altogether. Even if a person doesn't mean that those situations don't change, right? Childless person, maybe a person could have a child, right? Now, even if 3 out of the 4 are alive, it doesn't necessarily mean a person's going to be poor their whole lives. Don't mean that. They're, people have different, people go up and down all the time. Sometimes it's better, sometimes not. Evens out, sometimes. But again, a person's not going to have all 4 of them and say, well, I don't have this, I don't have that. There's no way out of it. That's not true, right? I don't think that's true. Some of them you can't correct. If a person's blind, let's say, In no way you're going to bring back your sight. Let's say there's no cure when a person has. If a person, let's say, doesn't have children, yeah, a woman, make it easy, yeah, past the age of having children, she's not going to have children. Yeah, there's certain things you can't fix, even biologically, even with all the technological advances today. I do know someone, that had a child that woman was over 50, I think. 50, 51. First child. Pretty miraculous. Yeah. It happened. Yeah. But again, let's say it didn't happen. But a woman 60. A woman gonna have a child at 60? I don't think so. Yeah. But let's say a woman gets up there in age, doesn't change. There are certain things you can't fix. Person who's blind, can you fix it? No. Right? We'll make it easy. Can't fix it. So those things don't change. Livelihood can change. Yeah. One thing over there can change. We're not going to stay poor forever. And there are different levels of poverty also. So the question, how you look at it, that's a major question. Right? But so the question is, well, what's the way to balance this out? Is the correction, how does one correct it? You can't. Some of them you can't correct. The only thing you can do is have a proper outlook on how to look at it. That's it. But correcting it, if a woman doesn't have kids, it's devastating for most women. I was in contact with somebody that they said, they never wanted to have kids. A different issue. For a non-Jew, they have to try and have kids, populate the world. They said it's a bad thing. I said, it's not normal. A woman wants to have a child in general. That's just biologically the way they're wired. Yeah, even if they're going to have to go through all the difficulty and all the pain, I'm not talking about surrogate mothers here, right? But if they have to go through all the difficulty and pain, they'll do it because it's worth it having that child. Everybody wants that. I mean, you tell me, I'm not talking about someone who, transgender, this, that. I'm not talking about that. Regular woman. Most women want to have kids. I heard this, someone asked me point blank, if I don't want to have kids, is that strange? I said, yeah. For a woman, that is strange. Yeah, I want to say it's sexist. That's women want to have kids in general. So some things you can't fix. The only question is how you view it, what the outlook is. Somebody asked, no, I'd question. Okay. Finally get to this. No, I'd orders a lot of books, wants to transport them to a particular room. Can you walk to the corner where there's a box toilet for a cat? Ooh. Or for a kid. So yeah, if there are Torah books, then better that they should be covered when you walk through. They should be covered. If there's nothing, let's say, in the cat box or in two potties for a kid, if they're clean, you don't have a problem. If they're not clean, yeah, so then I wouldn't necessarily bring them. I'd cover them, put them in a plastic bag, and then walk through, and then you won't have a problem. Someone asked, what's the name of their prayer thanking for everything? He didn't say. He just said, or Michael Biederman said that when if you're a Jew and you say Shemona Esrei, silent meditation, whatever you want to call it, there's a certain place there to say that, right? To ask for any of your needs, right? Any of your needs, right? In the prayer of it's called Shema Kolenu, right at the end. It's towards the end. Again, that's for a Jew. A non-Jew could say it every day. It doesn't matter. They don't have fixed prayer anyway. So a non-Jew, not in the sake of not going to convert, could say it. Could say it anytime. You definitely say it anytime. But again, in general, it's just thanking God for everything you have, right? There's another prayer for, let's say, for livelihood or to get married. It's called Pirke Shira. You can look that up online. And for livelihood is Parshas, we call Parshas Haman, right? Parshas Haman, not for Haman, but Parshas Haman means the manna that God gave in the desert, right? That's also a good thing to say for livelihood. Someone asks, is vegetarian cheese okay to use in meat dishes? Yeah. If it's vegetarian, then it means there's no dairy in it. So that would be okay, even if it looks like cheese. Yeah. If it's vegetarian, a person, let's say, wanted to put margarine on meat. I don't know if you would, but let's say a person wanted to, not a problem. Right? Certainly not a problem. Why? Because there's no cheese in it. Right? But again, if it's vegan, right? I mean, obviously it should be kosher, but if it's vegan, then it's not a problem. Right? It's not a problem. Even the way it looks, it's not a problem. Right? If you want to get out of the problem, let's say someone's buying, say, "Oh, how can you eat that?" You put the vegan cheese on the table. When you put the vegan cheese on the table, people see that's what it is, and that wouldn't be a problem, right? That'd be a problem of how people view it. But if you put it, let's say you're gonna have you're gonna have a burger with soy milk. Yeah, so I say, hey, it's not milk and meat, so you put the soy milk on the table. Say, no, I use soy milk, not a problem, right? That would get you out of the problem, right? Because of the way it looks. So if you have the thing on the table, it's not a problem. Is there anything to the blood types like O negative and all the folklore? I don't know. I don't think so. Blood type is blood type. Because the person has a blood type that's good for everybody and other people don't. I don't know. I wouldn't make too much about it. I'm not an expert in that, but I would think it doesn't matter. I don't think there's that much to it. It could be wrong, but I don't think so. I know we're not supposed to be afraid, but what can we do if we still feel this? I do study and not really want to do anything else. That's nothing to be afraid of. That's a good thing, right? But again, you want to study all day, that's great. You still have to make ends meet. So if you can do both, good, right? It's not a problem. It's not a problem. I had, someone once told me, parents said, or I think their mother said, is there more to life than God? The answer is no. Spend all day studying God's Torah. Yeah, plenty what to learn. It's not a bad thing. Definitely not a bad thing. People are going to say you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life, so don't go eat kugel. Don't go eat kugel. Your rabbi said go eat kugel. They don't like it, too bad. Right? You want to be married to God and God's law, you got to be absorbed in it. Right? There's nothing more important than that. We don't want to waste time in this world. We want to gain as much as we can, do as much as we can. That's that's not our problem. Everything else is just a distraction. Remember that. The whole world is one big distraction. God does not want you to be distracted. So you want to be all in. And now, now the evil inclination is going to say, come on, it's too hard. It's this. You got to get out. You got to party. You got to, forget it. You got to be strong. It's not easy, though. Definitely not easy. Yeah. Let me see. Any other questions? Are there multiple sects under brisk? In Jerusalem, there might be Haredim, but some places it's written as modern Orthodox. I don't think so. Right? The dynasty of Brisk that comes from Rav Chaim Brisker, that in Jerusalem today, and maybe other places. There is one group, I think, that I would say that a more of a modern Orthodox rabbi, Torah giant. I don't think any question, but look at it as being a little more modern, maybe the way it looks at the state of Israel and and different things. But I would say when we think of the dynasty of Brisk in general, we're looking at it in ultra Orthodox terms. There are some that are more modern, okay, but it's not the majority. I wouldn't say it is. I wouldn't say it's the. I wouldn't say it's the. I wouldn't say majority by any stretch. Yeah, a majority are Orthodox. That's what I would say. Any other questions here? All right, I'm gonna stop here. I do this every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions? Find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com. Or if you want to send me an email, Rabbi Chaim, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos for a portion of the week, Q&As, ethics of our fathers, book of Leviticus. If you want to send me an email, Rabbi Chaim Kaufman at gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com, which are good. Beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day.